The Nioh series is one that I've often heard praises sung about, but I've never had the time to properly try out the games myself. All I knew for certain was that Team Ninja's Souls-inspired series was full of deep and complex combat systems that made for an engaging, fast-paced samurai combat simulator. So, when Nioh 3 was first announced, I was excited at the chance to hop in and try out the series for the first time. As I set forth in exploring the various periods of ancient Japanese history, my mind was a canvas, ready to be painted on through relentless trials and challenges. Though my journey is far from over as I write this review, I can say with absolute certainty that this adventure has been thrilling, rewarding, and incredibly addicting. Before we get started, I'd like to thank both Koei Tecmo Europe and Team Ninja for providing me with a review copy for this video. All opinions expressed here are my own, and I have not received any monetary compensation either. With that out of the way, let's get stuck into the review. Starting with the story, Team Ninja's games have never really been about the story. Rather, they use story to contextualize the gameplay rather than enhance it. Nioh 3 is no different in this regard. The story follows you, a customizable Tokugawa Takechiyo, the soon-to-be shogun, on a journey throughout numerous eras in Japanese history on a quest to halt a calamity brought upon by your jealous younger brother, Tokugawa Kunimatsu. As you explore the world and complete dungeons known as crucibles, you'll encounter and assist historical figures in rather brief encounters, while dealing with yokai and opposing human armies. The novelty of the story mostly comes from understanding the historical references and seeing how the developers change and adapt these tales to fit the world of Nioh. The game contains a full glossary recapping the events of the first two games, but knowledge of them is not required as the story is self-contained. It also contains explanations of commonly used terminologies and historical information for those interested in broadening their understanding of the eras and specific Nioh world-building details. I'm quite the lore-focused Souls player myself, and so naturally I've been taking my time to read through these and all the other item descriptions, and I can't say it hasn't been enjoyable seeing names and historical events I recognize being mentioned in them. You don't need to do any of this to understand the story, and the story is by far the weakest aspect of the game, so rather than linger on the topic, let's move on to the real meat of Nioh, the gameplay and its various systems. While series veterans will find easing into the gameplay loop quite comfortable, newcomers such as myself needed some extra time to adjust and learn what makes Nioh distinct from other games in the genre. At its core, Nioh is about stamina management, or, as it's called in-game, ki. Every action, from attacking to blocking and dodging, consumes ki, and running out of ki leaves you in a vulnerable state to be critically struck. The enemies you face have ki as well, and so the combat almost feels like a game of tug-of-war mixed in with some resource management, as you try to deplete your enemy's ki without overextending and leaving yourself susceptible to counterattacks. Dodge iframes are nowhere near the level of a FromSoft Souls-like, and so I found using dodges to reposition proved most effective in battle. Your moveset initially seems simple, with light and strong attacks, but upon completing the tutorial, the game literally opens up. Soon you'll be unlocking different stances to swap between, combos, and special skills that can be swapped around freely. You've got High Stance, which hits hard and won't bounce off an enemy's guard, Low Stance, which is characterized by swift attacks and movement options, and Mid Stance, which functions as a jack of all trades. All of this is part of Nioh 3's samurai style and is merely one side of a coin. On the other side of that coin is ninja style, newly introduced in this game. Ninja style strips away all the stance mechanics and instead focuses on faster movement speed, lower ki consumption, better dodges, and special ninjutsu arts which can turn the tide of battle. If you're looking for a more traditional dodge-focused Souls-like, ninja style is incredibly versatile for all players regardless of skill, and I found myself relying upon it a decent amount in the early game. You're able to swap between each style whenever, even during combat, and each style is able to be customized with exclusive weapons and gear. You can even make your character's appearance totally different for each style, meaning that you could effectively play two characters as one if you really wanted to. I've been maining the samurai style for a more traditional Nioh experience, while building my ninja style towards debuffs and skills for dealing with harder to hit enemies, such as flying bugs. You can completely ignore one of the styles if it doesn't suit your taste, but using both can certainly make encounters a lot easier. Once I was over the initial hurdle known as the early game, Nioh 3's difficulty felt as if it settled down into a comfortable, reasonably challenging but not too hard flow. A lot of that comes from unlocking new skills and developing muscle memory for using them. For instance, the deflect skill for samurai acts like a parry that effectively ensures you will never run out of ki so long as you master it. Deflect is very over-centralizing for samurai style, with some people online I've seen complaining about, and others have been celebrating as a welcome change. The game even recommends you unlock Deflect early on, emphasizing its importance, and also potency in trivializing otherwise difficult encounters. But it wasn't just getting new skills that led to me having an easier time, but also the fact that I was rapidly improving with each hour that I played. Learning and mastering the combat loop almost feels like learning a martial art for the first time, and I know for certain there's still plenty more intricacies about the combat that I don't know about yet. I needed to mention this somewhere in the video, but Nioh 3 has a dedicated input for sheathing your weapon, and I love that so much. I'm not sure why, but I've always found great satisfaction in sheathing my weapons after a combat encounter in a video game, so Nioh 3 automatically wins extra points from me for having this feature. Exploration in the open world is both fast-paced and incredibly completionist-friendly. When you first arrive in a zone, you will have an incomplete map that doesn't show anything at all. As you complete enemy camps and acquire numerous collectibles, you'll level up your exploration level for that zone, providing passive buffs and filling out the map with more detail. By the time you've maxed out the exploration level, which isn't too difficult to begin with, the game will outright show you where everything you missed is, meaning that you'll never have to consult guides or wikis to ensure you grabbed everything. It may be a simple system, but it's very respectful of the player's time, and it still rewards curious exploration in between main missions. I also like how each zone is marked with a recommended level to be in for it, meaning that you'll never stumble across anything you're too weak for unless you're intentionally looking for a challenge, or to even find some better loot to carry you through earlier sections. On the topic of loot, the weapons and armor you find, in classic Nioh fashion, all come in different rarities with random passives attached to them. Some armor pieces even have set bonuses for matching gear of a particular type. It can feel intimidating needing to compare a multitude of passives against one another, but you can absolutely get by with just equipping whatever has the highest raw attack and defense on them. The game even has an option to auto-equip gear to your samurai and ninja styles with the press of a button, decreasing the downtime you'd otherwise spend gearing up in between encounters. You're also able to fodder off gear for materials, and in fact, you can turn on a setting that will automate that process for you whenever you rest at the equivalent of a bonfire. The settings menu in general is refreshingly impressive with just how many quality of life options there are. You can even craft specific gear pieces if you're looking to complete a set if you'd like. There's a lot of potential when it comes to set building, from passives to set bonuses, allowing the player to min-max as much as they want to. In a way, the game almost plays like a Diablo game in how enemies will frequently burst open with shiny loot of varying rarities, and I absolutely get a rush of serotonin from it each and every time. In terms of game performance, on PC with my RTX 4060 and Ryzen 5 7600, the game runs mostly okay at standard settings with DLSS set to dynamic resolution. I've had some instances where the game would begin stuttering for no apparent reason, which a game restart always seemed to fix. A memory leak issue, perhaps? I can say for certain that the game is very CPU and VRAM hungry, so do keep that in mind if you're on lower specs than mine. Visually, the game also just doesn't really look all too impressive, making the underwhelming performance sting just a little bit more. At the very least, frame generation is there as an option if you don't mind a tiny bit of extra input latency, but personally, for a game such as this with tight timing windows, I avoided turning it on. Co-op is also available just like in the previous games, and while I didn't use the feature during the writing and recording of this review, I could see that it was rather limiting just like in the previous games. You're able to either host or join a session in either the open world or one of the more linear, traditional mission-based levels, with progression only counting for the host. This means that if you wanted to co-op the entire game with friends, you'd have to replay missions and repeatedly explore the open world to keep everyone's progress in sync. Whether that's a deal breaker for you or not obviously depends on your own preferences, but I thought to at least mention it. I'm definitely planning on sticking with this game for the long haul, and I can see myself going for full completion given how easy it is to lose track of time while playing. Nioh 3 set out to deliver a satisfying experience for newcomers and veterans alike, and at least from a newcomer's perspective, Team Ninja absolutely nailed it, crafting such a refined experience that has me curious to check out the previous games after beating this one. Thank you for watching. This video took a bit longer than I would have liked to come out, but I'm glad I was able to get around to finishing it. There's so much more I could have talked about, but I'd rather not make this video any longer, especially since it's meant to be a first impressions review. Have you been playing Nioh 3 yourself? Let me know in the comments down below, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Take care of yourselves.